Some mornings the house feels heavier, even though nothing is out of place and nothing needs fixing. The quiet pull of attention, memory, and small decisions can weigh without being noticed. Drawers left unopened, chairs that require careful navigation, corners postponed for later, each seems insignificant on its own, yet together they create a subtle fatigue that settles in the mind and body. Calm doesn't arrive through effort or grand gestures. It begins when the home stops quietly asking for so much. Noticing these gentle demands and allowing them to ease gives the space a lighter presence. Rooms can simply exist without purpose, objects can remain without needing explanation, and movements through the home can feel natural again. Even homes lived in for decades can start to feel supportive rather than draining. Awareness of these small shifts brings relief and allows a slower, steadier rhythm to emerge. The quiet recognition of how little is truly required opens the door to small forms of peace, the kind that have always been there, waiting to be noticed and welcomed. 1. The relief of starting the day without owing the house anything. Morning arrives with a quiet possibility when the home stops silently demanding attention. For Gail, relief begins before she even rises. The usual pull is gone, drawers left unopened, small corners ignored, items waiting silently, all no longer pressing on her mind. A rare stillness settles, one that doesn't ask her to remember, sort, or manage. She doesn't need to check surfaces, straighten chairs, or account for years of stored things. The house no longer expects her to carry that invisible weight. This is not about clutter, it is about mental space, the freedom of starting a day without owing anything to a home that has quietly asked so much. As she moves through the first hour, Gail feels a growing ease, a lightness from knowing she doesn't need to do everything at once. Letting objects exist without attention, allowing rooms to remain as they are, creates a profound shift. Her mind no longer jumps ahead, calculating what must be done or remembered. Mornings become hers, not dictated by subtle, unseen expectations. Even small, unnoticed items, the teacup she rarely uses, the chair by the window, no longer demand thought, and this makes the rhythm of the home feel softer, gentler, and surprisingly liberating. This relief extends to simple choices. Sitting with coffee, stretching by the window, or pausing to listen to the quiet, all of it is no longer overshadowed by silent obligations. Even moments that once felt trivial are now infused with calm. There is space to move, to breathe, to feel the house as a companion rather than a taskmaster. Gail notices that when the home stops quietly demanding, she can begin the day in alignment with her own rhythm. Small habits, small routines, and even the unnoticed corners of the home all contribute to a lighter, freer start. This gentle freedom compounds. Starting without owing the house anything makes the rest of the day feel lighter. Decisions come easier, movement feels lighter, thought clearer, and her mind can focus on the present rather than what the home silently expects. The morning becomes a sanctuary of quiet strength, a space to begin on her own terms. In this calm, Gail discovers peace is not a grand gesture but the subtle sense that her home no longer asks more than she can give, a taste of calm that sets the tone for the day and allows her to carry that sense of ease into every moment, small or large, that follows. 2. The lightness of not having to remember or justify every belonging. Peace often arrives when the mind no longer carries the invisible weight of every object in a home. For Gail, the shift is subtle but profound. Drawers full of items once carefully stored, shelves holding dishes and keepsakes, stacks of papers and boxes that have lingered for decades, all of it stops demanding mental energy. She no longer needs to recall why something is there, when it might be used, or whether it should be placed somewhere else. Each object no longer requires explanation or justification, and with that release, her mind feels lighter, freer, and less cluttered. This lightness is not about getting rid of things or living with emptiness, it is about creating mental breathing room. The home remains full of memories, objects, and the life she has lived, yet it no longer pulls her attention in invisible, persistent ways. Every corner, every drawer, becomes less of a question mark and more of a quiet presence, letting her focus on what truly matters. The difference is felt in daily rhythms. Gail notices that simple actions, a cup of tea, turning on the radio, folding a towel, carry less tension. She moves with ease, unburdened by the mental bookkeeping that once accompanied each interaction with her surroundings. There is a gentle liberation in knowing she does not need to remember the story of every object or explain its purpose to herself. The home's history can exist without her constant attention, and in that space, a subtle calm emerges. Mental load is eased, and with it comes a rare freedom. She can think, plan, or simply breathe without carrying the weight of invisible obligations. This lightness allows for small, unnoticed joys to resurface. She can linger longer in the morning sunlight without worrying about whether she's overlooking something important. The objects that remain are no longer silent judges of her choices. They exist, and she exists alongside them without pressure. Even the smallest items, the teacup she seldom uses, the scarf tucked away in a drawer, the photograph leaning quietly on a shelf, no longer demand thought or explanation. They are present without expectation, and that simple presence is profoundly comforting. Have you noticed how much your home asks you to remember? When the mind is freed from justifying belongings, the home feels quieter, calmer, and lighter. The subtle relief grows with each day, creating a rhythm of ease that moves through every space, every action, every moment. This is the kind of peace that doesn't come from doing, sorting, or managing. It comes simply from noticing that things can exist without asking anything of you. It's in this quiet shift that Gail finds herself resting, fully and freely, in the life she has built, and in her home that finally feels like a sanctuary rather than a series of silent obligations. 3. The ease of entering any room without bracing yourself. There are rooms in a home that carry more than their physical presence. They carry responsibility, expectation, and subtle demands that the person living there may not even name. For Gail, this was most noticeable in the spare bedroom and the study, spaces filled with decades of accumulated items, each with a story, a memory, or a reason it had to be kept. Entering these rooms once required a moment of preparation, a mental bracing for the invisible weight. Should I straighten this? Should I move that? Was this the right place for it? Even when no one else would notice, the rooms demanded attention, silently asking for justification and care. Peace, in such a home, doesn't come from removing all objects or creating perfection. It comes from allowing spaces to exist without expectation. When a room can simply be, without silently questioning every choice or movement, it transforms. The neutrality of a space, free from responsibility, is profoundly calming. Gail discovered that simply noticing a room's presence without immediately acting or judging it produced a quiet ease. She could step inside without bracing herself, without that subtle tension in her shoulders or the quick scan of the floor for misplaced items. The freedom was gentle but noticeable, lightness in movement, clarity in thought, and a softening of the habitual vigilance that had quietly accompanied her for years. This ease was not tied to emptiness or minimalism. The room still held furniture, objects, and personal history. What changed was her relationship with it. The walls, the shelves, the corners no longer seemed to question her decisions. They existed, and she could exist within them without carrying invisible duties. Even simple routines became more soothing. Sitting in a chair by the window, opening a drawer without expectation, or pausing by a bookshelf became moments of calm rather than tasks to complete. Gail noticed the subtle shift in her energy. Steps felt lighter, movement slower and more intentional, and the mind, usually busy predicting what each space required, now rested in the present. The rooms became companions rather than silent managers, supporting her rather than directing her. Each entry into a once heavy room reinforced that peace does not require constant action, justification, or caretaking. Have you felt the tension of a room before even stepping inside? When spaces are allowed to exist without demanding attention, the home breathes alongside you. The quiet neutrality of a room provides a place for the mind to settle, for the body to relax, and for the person to simply be. In this acceptance, Gail found that the ease of moving through her home became a daily gift, a gentle, sustaining rhythm of calm that quietly reshaped her experience of every space she entered. The relief of neutrality rippled through her day, a quiet testament to the power of allowing rooms and the mind to rest. 4. The confidence of moving naturally through your own space. There is a quiet grace that comes when a home stops silently demanding caution. For Gail, years of navigating around corners, furniture, and carefully stacked belongings had built an almost imperceptible tension into her movements. Every step required subtle calculation, avoiding bumping a table leg, not brushing against a chair, remembering what was underfoot. Even familiar paths through her own home carried a whisper of caution, a low hum of responsibility that her body had absorbed. When peace begins to settle, the first sign is in movement itself. The house no longer issues invisible instructions, and with that, confidence returns, not loudly or suddenly, but gently, as if her body remembers the ease it once had. Gail notices the change immediately in her morning routine. She walks from the kitchen to the living room with a sense of flow, no longer pausing to navigate imagined obstacles or anticipate minor annoyances. Movements are smoother, lighter, and fully her own. There is a soft pleasure in reclaiming space. The familiar arch of a doorway, the distance between chair and table, the quiet openness of a hallway, all become instruments of comfort rather than tests of vigilance. Her hands, once hesitating to reach for items for fear of disturbing the balance of objects, now move freely, guided by intention rather than caution. Each motion reinforces the message that her home is supportive, not demanding. This return of confidence is mirrored in moments that were once small sources of tension. Reaching for a teacup on a high shelf, carrying a basket of laundry, or stepping over a rug, all are now performed with fluidity and calm. The subtle reassurance that the environment no longer imposes itself allows Gail to move naturally, without self-conscious calculation. Even the unconscious tension in her shoulders begins to ease, replaced by a quiet strength that comes from trusting the space around her. She notices her steps are lighter, her posture more relaxed, and a sense of grounded presence spreads through her body. Have you experienced the difference when a space no longer dictates your motion? When a home stops asking you to compensate for its demands, the body remembers how to move with freedom and assurance. Confidence emerges not as a goal but as a natural response to a supportive environment. Gail discovers that when peace returns to her home, it returns to her body as well, allowing her to inhabit every corner with ease. The simple act of moving through rooms becomes a form of quiet liberation, a gentle reminder that the home belongs to her, and she can trust herself to move through it with steady assurance. The calm of confident movement lingers long after a single step, shaping the day with a subtle, sustaining rhythm of freedom. 5. The quiet closure of letting someday release its hold. Some spaces in a home carry more than objects. They carry intentions, plans, and memories paused in time. For Gail, the attic and a corner of the study had long been filled with items set aside for someday. These weren't chores waiting to be done. They were thoughts and possibilities that hovered quietly in her mind, each one asking, in its own way, for attention, consideration, or decision. Even without realizing it, the presence of these deferred spaces had a subtle weight. She often noticed a lingering sense of unfinished business, not in urgency, but in gentle mental tension, a quiet nudge that something might need acknowledgement. Peace arrives when one allows even a single someday to release its hold, when a thought or intention is recognized and gently set aside. The lift is subtle yet profound, an emotional unclenching that does not demand action, only permission to let go. Gail discovered that letting go of these mental bookmarks transformed her sense of the home. She could enter the attic or approach the study without the undercurrent of mental bookkeeping. Items that had once required evaluation, justification, or careful consideration could simply exist, and she could exist alongside them without carrying their weight. There is freedom in knowing that not every object, memory, or plan needs to be attended to immediately, or even ever. Some things can simply be, leaving space for her mind to rest and for her body to move without invisible obligations. Each small release adds up, creating a sense of ease that touches even daily routines. This quiet closure extends beyond physical spaces. It influences how Gail experiences time, choice, and presence. Mornings feel lighter when the attic is no longer waiting. Evenings feel calmer when the study is no longer a silent reminder of deferred tasks. The mind relaxes, and with it comes a subtle clarity, a sense of having permission to be present with what matters most now. Even small interactions, reaching for a book, opening a drawer, or turning on a lamp, are experienced without the weight of suspended intentions. Is there something in your home that never quite leaves your mind? When someday is allowed to release its hold, the emotional weight lifts without effort. The home stops silently asking for attention, and in that absence, a new kind of peace emerges, a soft, sustaining calm that settles over rooms, routines, and the mind itself. Gail finds that letting go in this way is not about neglect, but about choosing freedom over mental burden, allowing her home and herself to exist fully in the present moment. 6. The comfort of ending the day with energy still intact. Evenings carry a unique quiet, a chance to settle into the rhythm of the day and feel the lingering energy of lived moments. For Gail, the difference is striking. In the past, the day's end often brought subtle fatigue, not from effort or exertion, but from the quiet, invisible demands of her home. Chairs to straighten, objects to adjust, corners that required attention, all of it had a way of slowly sapping energy without notice. Now, with peace settling into her environment, those demands have faded. She notices that when the day comes to a close, her body feels lighter, her mind less cluttered, and her spirit quietly at ease. The house no longer exacts a toll simply by existing. Rest comes easier, not because she has done more, but because she has been required to do less. The evenings feel different in tangible ways. Simple routines, like preparing a cup of tea, closing a book, or sitting by the window, are infused with a gentle ease. She moves through her home without the usual mental bookkeeping, and even small moments, adjusting a blanket, arranging a chair for comfort, or glancing at a familiar photograph, carry a calm that is newly noticeable. Energy that once disappeared into managing invisible expectations is now available for her, held within her own rhythm. There is a subtle pleasure in this, a soft recognition that she has been able to navigate the day without the home silently drawing from her vitality. The reward is quiet, unforced, and entirely her own. Gail also notices how this change influences her evenings beyond her body. Her thoughts feel calmer, her focus steadier, and she can engage fully in moments she might previously have rushed through. There is room for reflection, for noticing the small joys of the day, the way sunlight shifted across the floor, the gentle hum of the refrigerator, the aroma of a favorite cup of tea. She feels a gentle sense of satisfaction, not from completing tasks or maintaining appearances, but from simply existing within a space that now supports her rather than subtly managing her. Have you felt the quiet difference when a day ends with energy still intact? When the house no longer extracts effort in small, invisible ways, the evening becomes a sanctuary. Calm feels earned, yet not forced, a natural consequence of living in an environment that honors presence rather than attention. For Gail, this comfort is profoundly reassuring. She can rest, fully and freely, knowing that the home and the day have coexisted without draining her. Each evening becomes a gentle reminder that independence and ease are possible, and that the home can exist as a companion rather than a demand, letting her carry peace forward into tomorrow. 7. The trust of knowing your home is finally on your side. True peace comes when the home itself feels like an ally rather than a silent taskmaster. For Gail, nothing has changed in appearance. The furniture, the photographs, the familiar corners remain exactly as they have for decades. Yet the weight she once carried has lifted, and the subtle tension that accompanied every movement and decision is gone. She moves freely, rests easily, and experiences a quiet assurance. Her home is no longer silently testing her, questioning her choices, or demanding attention. Even spaces that once felt heavy with expectation, the study, the attic, the spare room, now offer a gentle neutrality, allowing her to inhabit them without preemptive effort or concern. The peace is not loud or dramatic, but steady, the kind that settles in gradually and stays. Each morning, afternoon, and evening reinforces the sense that the home is aligned with her own rhythm, quietly adapting to her presence without asking anything in return. This trust transforms daily routines. Walking through hallways, reaching for everyday items, or simply pausing by a window no longer carries the undercurrent of calculation that once drained her energy. Instead, there is confidence that the home will meet her calmly, without requiring constant management. Objects exist without demanding mental bookkeeping, rooms exist without demanding justification, and corners exist without silently questioning her presence. The environment has shifted from one that exacted attention to one that offers quiet support, and even small gestures, like picking up a book or setting down a cup, feel lighter and more intentional than before. Gail feels this trust ripple through her body and mind. Her movements are lighter, her thoughts clearer, and her awareness of the present more acute. She no longer anticipates hidden burdens or subtle tests. Instead, she experiences a space that welcomes her fully and quietly affirms her independence. Each moment in the home reinforces the sense that she can live without compromise, with dignity and ease. This is the peace promised by the title. The home looks the same, but its energy is transformed. It supports rather than tests, allows rather than asks, and rests alongside her as a steady presence. In this trust, Gail discovers a profound calm that lingers in every corner, every routine, every breath. It is a quiet, lasting reassurance that independence is possible, that ease is attainable, and that the home can be a true companion, faithfully on her side, day after day, offering a rhythm of comfort and calm that feels deeply earned yet effortless. Gail sits in her favorite chair, a cup of tea warming her hands, and notices the subtle ease that now fills her home. The familiar walls, the shelves of memories, the soft hum of appliances, all coexist without silently asking anything of her. She feels lighter, more present, and quietly assured that the space she has inhabited for decades is finally aligned with her own rhythms. This reflection is not about perfection or dramatic change, but about recognizing the profound relief that comes when a home stops taking more than it gives. It is the kind of peace that seeps into mornings, afternoons, and evenings, a gentle companion that allows energy to remain intact, attention to be uncluttered, and independence to be fully honored. Gail experiences a freedom that is not about removing her life or her belongings, but about allowing the home to exist as a quiet supporter rather than a demanding presence. For the viewer, this moment is an invitation to consider their own spaces. How often does your home quietly ask more than it gives? Where do invisible demands weigh on your mind or body without notice? The peace Gail experiences is possible in any home when we allow spaces to release the subtle, constant requests they place upon us. It is not achieved through extreme decluttering or dramatic overhaul, but through small, mindful shifts that reduce mental load, ease movement, and foster a gentle rhythm of calm throughout the day. Each action of noticing, allowing, and simplifying contributes to a living environment that supports energy, respects independence, and honors the dignity of daily life. As you reflect on your own home, consider engaging with the community here at Wise Aging Seniors. Share what resonates, leave a comment, or like and subscribe, not as tasks, but as ways to connect with others seeking the same calm and independence. Every interaction contributes to a shared understanding that peace is possible, that homes can be companions rather than challenges, and that the quiet, sustaining relief of a supportive environment is worth celebrating. The final, lasting thought is simple yet profound. Peace doesn't arrive when life becomes smaller. It arrives when your home finally stops demanding so much from the life you're already living. In recognizing this, Gail, and the viewer alongside her, can feel a renewed sense of comfort, ease, and belonging, knowing that calm is not a distant goal but a living, present reality within reach.